Kevin Stefanski's press conference was business as usual, until it wasn't. When pressed on why Shedeur Sanders didn't receive the game ball after his historic debut, Stefanski offered no clear answer, not even mentioning the rookie's name. In contrast, Andrew Berry made no such omission. Inside the locker room, Berry's hug for Sanders was more than just congratulatory. It was loud, visible support. For a franchise that hasn't seen a rookie QB win his debut in nearly 20 years, the symbolism was striking. And for fans and players watching, the message was clear. This team is split at the top.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Moments like these reveal more than post-game emotions. They expose fractures in leadership. Stefanski's avoidance of Sanders' name feels less like strategy and more like skepticism, while Berry's response suggests a GM already staking his future on this quarterback. When a player is asked to lead a team but not publicly supported by his coach, it doesn't just affect confidence. It jeopardizes chemistry. The Browns must decide fast whether they're building around Sanders or tearing themselves apart debating it. The Cleveland Browns finally did it. After nearly 2 decades of waiting, they watched a rookie quarterback take the field, start the game, and walk away with a win. Not just any win, a historic, drought-breaking, momentum-swinging win. That rookie was Shedeur Sanders, and his debut should have been a celebration, a turning point, a unifying moment for a franchise desperate for stability under center. But instead, it turned into a controversy. Because after Sanders helped deliver that long-overdue victory, head coach Kevin Stefanski refused to give him a game ball. Not only that, he didn't even mention him. No name drop, no praise, no post-game highlight, just vague remarks about the team. And fans caught it right away. This wasn't a small oversight or a media flub. It was pointed. Stefanski had the perfect opportunity to acknowledge a major milestone, and he chose not to. The first rookie quarterback to win his debut for Cleveland in nearly 20 years. And the coach couldn't even say his name? That doesn't just raise eyebrows, it raises alarms. Meanwhile, in the same locker room, Browns general manager Andrew Berry made a very different move. He walked right up to Shedeur Sanders, embraced him in front of the team, and sent a message the cameras picked up loud and clear. I'm with you. Public. Intentional. Supportive. That's when the rift became undeniable. What had been whispered about internally, the quiet disagreements, the philosophical divide, was now out in the open. Berry is all in on Sanders. Stefanski? Not so much. And the consequences of that divide could reshape the Browns' organization from the inside out. The coaching staff's hesitation toward Sanders isn't new. There's been talk that some inside the building were unsure about starting him. That Stefanski wanted a slower rollout. That Sanders didn't fit the system. But Berry saw something else. He saw leadership potential, composure, the ability to step in and deliver under pressure. And in Sanders' very first NFL outing, that's exactly what happened. He kept his cool. He executed. He won. And he did it with maturity, both on the field and off it. Because despite being completely iced out of the post-game spotlight, Sanders said nothing. No complaints. No subtle shots. Just quiet professionalism. That alone says more about his readiness than any stat line. But while Sanders took the high road, the rest of us are left trying to understand why the Browns would risk sabotaging this moment. Let's be blunt. In the NFL, quarterback development is everything. It defines franchises. It determines futures. When you finally get a young player who looks like he might be the guy, you build around him. You lift him up. You invest in him, not just privately, but publicly. That's what creates momentum. That's what builds a team identity. And that's exactly what didn't happen here. Instead, the win felt fractured. The team's leadership wasn't on the same page. And fans could sense it. Because Andrew Berry's support wasn't just a locker room hug. It was a statement. It put Stefanski's silence in an even harsher light. It exposed the deeper issue. An internal split over who the Browns are building around. And who's calling the shots. This is more than a game ball. This is about alignment, trust, organizational vision. And right now, those things are up in the air. Barry believes Sanders is the future. Stefanski seems unconvinced. And the fallout from that disconnect is already beginning to show. It's not just the lack of a game ball, it's the pattern. The media avoidance. The refusal to acknowledge Sanders' contribution. The hesitation to hand him any credit. That behavior doesn't come from nowhere. It reflects a lack of buy-in. And when the head coach won't commit to the quarterback the front office is building around, it's a matter of time before things start to crack. Stefanski has always carried himself with calculated restraint. But restraint turns into resistance when it starts to undermine player recognition, especially for a rookie quarterback who's delivered under pressure. His actions, or lack thereof, send a message to the locker room, to the media, and to the fans. And that message is not one of unity. Meanwhile, Barry's actions send a very different message. They say this is our guy. That belief matters. That public show of support matters, especially for a young quarterback trying to establish himself. It's hard enough to succeed in the NFL as a rookie. It's even harder when you have to win over your own coaching staff on top of everything else. And yet, Sanders has handled it all with discipline. He hasn't tried to control the narrative. He's let his performance do the talking. But the longer this divide lingers, the worse it gets. Because internal dysfunction doesn't stay internal for long. It leaks, it spreads, and it chips away at team morale. You can't expect players to give everything when they're not sure who the organization is rallying behind. You can't build trust when your leaders aren't aligned. And the longer Stefanski keeps distancing himself from Sanders, the more pressure lands on the front office to take a side. Because at some point, you can't keep pretending everything's fine when your coach is refusing to publicly support the guy the GM is backing to lead the franchise. That tension leads somewhere. And if it keeps building, it's going to force a decision. If Sanders keeps playing well, and especially if he keeps winning, the argument for aligning fully behind him gets stronger by the week. And if Stefanski continues to hold back, that leash gets shorter. It's not hard to see where this ends if it doesn't get resolved. Quarterback wins. Coach doesn't adjust. Front office chooses quarterback. Coaching changes follow. That's not speculation. That's how the NFL works. There's no room for ego when a franchise quarterback might be on the line. And Barry knows that, too. He's signaling now. That hug wasn't just about celebration. It was about control. It was about direction. It was about establishing who the Browns are going to be moving forward. And if that direction doesn't include Stefanski, the writing's already on the wall. For now, Shedeur Sanders continues to do what he's done from day one. Keep his head down and deliver. But the Browns need to catch up to that energy fast. Because this can't turn into another, what could have been situation. Not again. Not after 20 years of false starts. They've got the talent. They've got the moment. They had the win. All they had to do was act like a team on the same page. Instead, they exposed the gap. And until that gap is closed, no amount of locker room talent will keep the Browns from falling back into the same cycle that's haunted them for decades. If the leadership can't unify behind their quarterback, they're setting him and the team up to fail. And if you're still watching, we want to hear from you. Was Stefanski justified in keeping things low-key? Or did he seriously drop the ball, literally and figuratively? Hit like if you think Shedeur deserved that game ball. Drop a comment if you're worried this could spiral into another Browns breakdown. And subscribe if you want the real story behind every messy moment in the NFL. Because in Cleveland, even a win can come with a warning. The truth is, the Cleveland Browns had a choice. They could have stepped into a new chapter with clarity, momentum, and alignment. They could have turned Shedeur Sanders' first win into a defining moment, not just for him, but for the entire franchise. Instead, they chose hesitation, misdirection, a fractured post-game narrative that overshadowed what should have been a galvanizing team victory. And that's what stings the most. Because when you've been in the Browns' position, cycling through quarterbacks like seasonal trends, suffering through years of instability, these moments matter. They're rare. They're symbolic. They set the tone for what's next. And Kevin Stefanski didn't just downplay that moment. He outright erased it from the spotlight. And to what end? You don't get points in the NFL for being cryptic. Coaches don't build credibility by ignoring the obvious. Sanders wasn't asking to be handed the crown. He earned recognition with results. He came in under pressure and did exactly what every Browns quarterback before him had failed to do since the early 2000s. Went out of the gate. But instead of leaning into the optimism, Stefanski stepped back. Arms crossed. Expression blank. Nothing. No praise. No public confidence. No sign that he's ready to get behind this young QB who just gave him his best storyline in years. Why? That's the million-dollar question. And everyone's asking it, players, fans, analysts. Because this doesn't feel like tough love. It feels like quiet rejection. It feels like a coach trying not to show his hand because he never wanted this hand in the first place. And what makes this situation even more bizarre is how the opposite message is coming from upstairs. Folder not found. Using A-B speaking per previous context, Andrew Berry didn't hold back. He didn't dodge the cameras or throw out generic praise. He stepped in physically, emotionally, symbolically, and let the world know where he stands. That moment in the locker room wasn't just about celebration. It was about validation, about presence. Berry showed up for his quarterback in a way Stefanski very publicly didn't. And that's not something you can ignore. Because in the NFL, these moments are never just about football. They're about control, messaging, identity. When your head coach and your general manager send two completely different messages after a milestone win, that's not just awkward. That's dysfunction. And now, everyone inside that building knows it. What happens next isn't just about Sanders. It's about the Browns as a whole. This is a team at a crossroads, and how they handle this early tension will shape the rest of their season, and maybe the next few seasons after that. Let's break it down. On one side, you've got Kevin Stefanski, a coach with a measured personality, a cautious approach, and a shrinking margin for error. His future in Cleveland has been up in the air for a while now. The offense has struggled to find identity. Big quarterback investments haven't panned out the way anyone hoped. The trust from fans is already shaky. On the other side, Andrew Berry, who's quietly, but firmly, planting his flag. He believes in Sanders. That much is clear. He sees the talent, the leadership, the calm under pressure, and more importantly, he sees a chance to finally turn the page on years of quarterback instability. And if this quarterback becomes the guy, that's not just a win on the field, it's legacy defining. It solidifies Berry's vision for the franchise. It gives him leverage, power, and it forces everyone else in the building to either fall in line or fall out of favor, including the head coach. Because let's be honest, if you're ownership, what's the better long-term bet? The rookie quarterback who's already shown composure, professionalism, and the ability to lead a team to victory, or the head coach who refuses to acknowledge any of it. This isn't a tough decision. The modern NFL revolves around quarterback development, and the Browns finally have someone who might be worth building around. You don't jeopardize that for a coach who can't bring himself to say the kid's name at a press conference. Stefanski's supporters will say it's about humility, that he doesn't want to create a media circus, that he wants to keep Sanders grounded. Fine, but let's not pretend this is normal. Coaches all across the league give game balls to rookies after a big debut. It's not about hype, it's about respect. About rewarding a player for stepping up when it mattered. The lack of that moment in Cleveland? It's not discipline, it's dismissal. And when you dismiss a player who just delivered for you, that player notices. So do his teammates. So does the locker room. These things matter. Even worse, it sends a message to other young players in the building. Don't expect credit unless you're part of the coach's plan. Don't expect support unless you were his pick. That kind of atmosphere kills trust. And once that starts slipping, the team starts unraveling. And for what? To protect someone's ego? To avoid shifting the narrative too quickly? It's already shifted. The rookie won. The building felt it. The fan base felt it. The only person acting like nothing happened was the head coach. And if you're Shedeur Sanders, this is your welcome to the NFL. Win a game, break a curse, and still end up fighting for acknowledgement from the very man who's supposed to be leading you. He hasn't said a word of frustration. Not publicly, not on social. He's kept it cool, calm, and focused. And that alone is telling. Because for a young quarterback under this kind of pressure, that's rare. That kind of composure is what you build franchises around. But it only works if the leadership around him is aligned. And right now it's not. And here's the real problem. If the Browns don't get this sorted fast, the entire locker room starts to feel it. Veteran players pick up on leadership tensions faster than fans do. They've seen what happens when the front office and coaching staff aren't in sync. It's always the same: messy meetings, confusing game plans, sideline blame games, and a slow erosion of team identity. That's where this is headed if something doesn't give. Either Stefanski adjusts his posture and gets behind Sanders, or the Browns are going to have to seriously consider what kind of leadership they want going forward. Because Barry's not backing down. He's made his position clear. And the longer the divide grows, the harder it will be to walk it back. This is the moment. The Browns can keep letting ego and misalignment dictate their culture. Or they can lean into this rare opportunity to stabilize around a quarterback with real upside. Someone who's already shown that he can rise above the noise, stay professional under pressure, and win. That's not something you downplay. That's something you build on. But it starts with unity. And right now, that's the one thing the Browns clearly don't have. This entire controversy didn't have to exist. But now that it does, it's a litmus test. Not just for Sanders, but for the entire organization. How they handle this friction, how they move forward from this point, will speak volumes about who they really are. Are they a franchise ready to move past dysfunction? To embrace change? To support their talent with real, unified leadership? Or are they going to let old patterns, cautious egos, and behind-the-scenes tension sabotage what could finally be a path out of quarterback hell? Time's ticking. And so is the patience of the fan base. What's almost tragic about this situation is how predictable it is. Because if you've followed the Cleveland Browns for any amount of time, you know this feeling. The spark of something promising followed almost immediately by self-sabotage from inside the building. It's not even the losses that break fans anymore. It's the leadership meltdowns that always seem to show up right when things start going right. And here we are again. The rookie quarterback breaks a 2-decade curse. The team gets a win. And instead of that being the moment where the franchise finally unites behind a vision, it turns into a story about silent treatment, missed symbolism, and growing fractures at the top. The question nobody wants to say out loud yet, but everyone is thinking, is this: how long can this dynamic hold before it explodes? Because let's be honest, this isn't a matter of difference in style or handling things internally. When you have your GM visibly supporting a player your head coach is actively refusing to acknowledge, you don't have a style issue. You have a foundational disagreement about leadership, and that never stays quiet for long. Andrew Barry is not being subtle. He sees the bigger picture. He sees that Shedeur Sanders is more than just a rookie quarterback. He's an opportunity, a symbol, a reset button for a franchise that spent years desperately trying to find a steady hand at the most important position in sports. And now that he finally has won, Barry's making it very clear. This is the direction. Get on board or get left behind. And Kevin Stefanski? He's giving the vibe of a coach who's already feeling replaced. He may still have a title, but if you're watching how this is playing out, it's not hard to see who actually holds the steering wheel right now. And it's not Stefanski. The worst part is, this could have all been avoided with the tiniest bit of emotional intelligence. One comment after the game. One show of recognition. 1 second to step aside and let the rookie have his well-earned moment. That's it. That's all it would have taken to keep this from becoming a full-on PR storm. Instead, Stefanski played it cold, deliberate, dismissive. And in doing so, he didn't just snub Sanders. He made this entire thing bigger than it ever needed to be. Now the locker room's watching. The media's circling. And ownership is almost certainly keeping tabs, because this isn't just about a single incident. It's about what kind of culture you're reinforcing at the top. And right now, that culture looks fractured. You can't build around a quarterback while refusing to acknowledge him publicly. You can't expect fans to believe in a long-term vision when the coach and GM are broadcasting two completely different blueprints. And you definitely can't expect players to stay loyal if they feel like internal politics matter more than performance. The worst thing you can do in a competitive, high-pressure environment is let mixed signals fester. Because they don't stay in the background, they infect everything. Practice becomes tense. Pressers become landmines. And eventually, players start tuning out the leadership entirely. If that happens in Cleveland again, it's over. This isn't just a leadership test. It's a survival moment for the Browns' entire front office structure. And Stefanski, for all his calculated moves and measured tone, is playing a dangerous game. Because if the front office decides he's not part of the solution, he becomes the first scapegoat in what could be a fast-moving reshuffle. 2. Let's not forget, in the NFL, timelines don't stretch forever. And Barry isn't exactly bluffing here. His locker room embrace of Sanders, his refusal to let the kid go unrecognized. It all points to a GM who's ready to build something around his guy, even if that means clearing the deck to do it. So where does this go next? It all depends on how long Stefanski continues to resist the shift. Because every game from here on out adds more pressure. Every win under Sanders' leadership makes it harder for Stefanski to keep his distance. And every non-answer or vague quote chips away at the already fragile perception that the coaching staff is united behind the quarterback they have. And if Sanders keeps performing, if the team keeps winning under him, that gap becomes a canyon. And at some point, someone's going to fall into it. Here's the real story. This isn't about whether Shedeur Sanders gets a game ball. It's about whether the Cleveland Browns are finally ready to stop sabotaging themselves when something real shows up at their doorstep. Because that's what Sanders represents, something real. Something worth investing in. Something this team has not had in a very long time. And if they mess this up over egos, internal politics, or some coach trying to play 4D chess with post-game praise, then they deserve every bit of the chaos they're about to unleash. 2. If you're watching this play out and thinking, here we go again, you're not alone. Drop your take in the comments. Do you think Stefanski is losing the locker room, or is this just a one-off misstep? Hit that like button if you're tired of Cleveland snatching dysfunction from the jaws of progress. And make sure you're subscribed, because this story is far from over. And when the next twist drops, we'll be right here to break it all down.